Absolutely. Chairwoman Carson.
Present.
Rep. Chippendale. Rep. Cortvrend.
Present.
Rep. Hawkins.
Present.
Rep. Newberry. Rep. Solomon.
Present.
Rep. Agello.
Present.
That concludes the roll.
Okay. I think most folks know me on this call. My name is State Representative Lauren Carson. I represent the 75th House District, which is the terrific city of Newport, Rhode Island. And this is the Subcommittee on Arts, Recreation, and Tourism. And I think most folks on the call know that under the leadership of Speaker Shikarchi, he has created 5 subcommittees under the Oversight Committee. And then this is one on Arts, Recreation, and Tourism. And arts, recreation, and tourism are clearly interrelated in the state of Rhode Island, but additionally, they have significant meaning unto themselves. And so, and different stakeholders and some overlapping stakeholders. So this is our second meeting. And what I thought made sense to get started was to focus our first meeting on arts, our second meeting on tourism, and our third meeting on recreation, which I don't think it'll be for at least another 3 weeks. So we met last week, we'll have a break for a couple weeks. And I thought that at the first meeting, we would just ask some of the leaders of the different stakeholder groups to come and lay a baseline of information for the subcommittee. That way we could dig into some issues as they emerged. I prepared a set of questions that we used last week with the arts community. Pardon me. And the tourism community is using that same set of questions, which focus on size of organization, budget, goals, mission, so we can get a basic understanding of how the industry functions. And there are, excuse me, turn my phone off. I'm sorry. There were many people that we could have brought on this call because the tourism industry is generally managed by the 7 regions as well as commerce. But, for those folks that are also new to this issue, I chaired a House Study Commission on tourism for about 3.5 years. So I'm fortunate enough to have terrific working relationships with the leaders of the tourism industry. And I made the decision that the folks to bring in for the first meeting would be the City of Providence, my city, the City of Newport, the Hospitality Association, as well as the State Commerce, because those are three of the players in the marketing and management of the tourism industry. There are other regions in the state of tourism. We've not left them out. There's Block Island, Warwick, Blackstone Valley, South County. We haven't left them out. We just haven't gotten them on this meeting, but we will hear from them also as the subcommittee proceeds. So what I'd like to do today is to invite Matt from Commerce, and then Kristen, who's on the line, I saw her, and then Evan from Newport, and then finally Sarah from Hospitality, in that order, to tell us a little bit about tourism, so that the members can really get a briefing on how tourism works. So if there aren't any questions at this stage? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with Matt. So Matt, you're up.
Thank you, Representative. And I still can't get my share button to work, so Sarah, being a terrific partner, is going to help me share my slides, if that's all right with the group.
That's fine.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Matt, jump in.
I'm going to jump in because I don't need the first slide right away. So good afternoon, Representatives. It's an honor to join my colleagues from the tourism and hospitality industry and be with you today to tell you a little bit about our efforts. As Representative Carson said, I want to provide an overview of statewide tourism marketing efforts at Rhode Island Commerce, walk you through our strategy that we've implemented over the past year, and some of our initiatives and strategies as we head into the summer season. As many of you know, Rhode Island Commerce is a quasi-public agency that serves as the state's official economic development agency, and we work to create conditions for businesses in all of the sectors to help them thrive and improve the quality of life for our citizens. We offer business assistance and access to funding for companies of all sizes. Rhode Island's appeal as a tourist destination is a highly valuable asset for our overall economy, and our tourism division works in partnership with local convention and visitors bureaus, chambers of commerce, and private travel-related organizations to promote economic opportunity through domestic and international tourism. Said plainly, we want visitors to come to Rhode Island and, most importantly, stay overnight and spend their dollars in our local economy. The marketing team at Rhode Island Commerce is made up of 10 FTEs, which includes 4 direct tourism staff and 2 graphic designers. And in addition to their regular jobs on the marketing team throughout the COVID-19 crisis, all of them have taken on rotating shifts on the small business hotline, have gone door to door in our communities, helping our businesses sign up for PPP loans or grants that the state has provided, and taken on additional duties through the crisis. Next slide, Sarah, thank you. One of the main assets of the team here at Rhode Island Commerce is our Visit Rhode Island website. It's the state's full-time tourism website, and not only does the website promote each of our state's unique regions, but it also showcases events, let visitors put together their own itineraries, and you can even book hotels and accommodations directly through the website. Our team works directly with tourism and hospitality businesses across the state to make sure their offerings and listings are up to date and that they're able to showcase themselves on their site. And I quickly just want to show you one of the features. Next slide, please. So if you were a tourist who had a passion for breweries, you would click on our breweries tab and it would bring you up a listing of all of our local breweries here in Rhode Island. If you clicked one of them, next slide, it would bring you to a little profile of that brewing company with the directions on how to visit them and their phone number. And if you clicked it one more time, next slide, it would take you to their unique page on our Visit Rhode Island website where you could find their social media links, their website, and then you can add it to create your own trip and itinerary for when you visit our great state. VisitRhodeIsland.com receives over 1 million visitors a year, unique visitors a year. Next slide. Our goal at Commerce on the, I want to just pause before I get into the next section and tell you, VisitRhodeIsland.com during COVID, we utilized the website to be a resource not only for tourists, but also Rhode Islanders alike. It featured the current travel restrictions, policies, and guidance. And most importantly, it highlighted activities that were both open and COVID safe. For example, outdoor activities like walking trails, museums that were doing online virtual art classes, restaurants that were operating takeout and delivery services when only that was allowed, and it even promoted shopping local and shopping local online. Next slide, Sarah. Thank you. As I mentioned, our goal at Commerce is quite simple. It's to get heads in beds and increase tourism activity to get them to spend more money in our local economy. We do that through 3 ways, which I'll go very quickly through: paid media, earned media, and social media. Most importantly, data and analytics is what drives our strategy. So our paid media is funded through hotel tax dollars that Rhode Island Commerce gets a portion of. And so when we go out with paid advertising, we use a tool called Adara, which means that we put a cookie or a tracking device on all of our ads. So we can uniquely see if someone gets served up one of our ads, and if someone clicks it, we're able to see if it's clicked. And we even get data one step further. If they go and book a hotel site, a hotel booking after they click that ad, we're able to see the hotel booking reservation made and confirmed. These metrics are very important to us. Sarah, next slide, please. So I want to share with you some of our paid media activity from the period of July 22nd to February 28th. Next slide. This was our media strategy during the height of COVID when things started to open up very slowly. We wanted to select advertising partners that enabled us to be flexible and nimble in order to change our ad buy or shape it depending on if there was any change in guidance or regulations. So we focused on digital tactics such as search ads, web banner ads, and online videos. We appealed to the unique needs of travelers and communities during this time by promoting safe travel. We knew from national studies that folks were not comfortable to get on airplanes, so we focused on drive markets of Massachusetts, Connecticut, and the New York DMA. And then we showcased experiences that were outdoor and socially distanced, and we even reflected that in our ads. We had ads where people were wearing their masks. They showed socially distant activities because we wanted to give folks that were coming here a taste that we were COVID compliant, that the rules were important to us. And as I said before, we tracked our return on ad spending via Adara. Next slide, please. So here's our year-to-date performance from July 22nd to February 28th. We spent $568,000 on paid ads, and from that we were able to track direct bookings from our ads, 148,393 direct hotel bookings, which was a direct hotel revenue of $18.4 million, which is a 2.6 times return on our ad spend. And you'll see I wanted to include this diagram on the slide for you to show we did not do paid advertising from April to July. And then we did a pause during the second COVID spike in January through the early February. Next slide, please. It's important to note that while we didn't do paid advertising during that time, we still did earned media and we still did social media during that time to keep an always on front of mind mindset. Our plans for the rest of this fiscal year are, as we build up for the summer season and more people are getting vaccinated and more of our economy is opening, we're going to be doing the spring road trips. We call it a campaign, but just an effort. And then we have our second annual hotel week coming up in April that we'll be promoting. Next slide, please. I'll just quickly go through this. One of our other strategies is earned media. So on top of paid media, we have earned media, which is highlighting Rhode Island and our unique destination, whether it be hotels, things to do in national and regional media outlets. In 2020, even though we were at the height of the pandemic, we were still able to get 129 unique earned media placements. In our industry, the value of that's calculated by a third party, so it's about 18 million worth of ad value. And in one of our print features specifically, we received a gold award from the Adrian Award celebration. Next slide. I'll send this presentation to the committee, but just some of our placements I wanted you to see. We had a big feature on coastal living. Next slide. Men's Journal, Boston Elite Traveler. And then during 2020, we hosted some journalists who wanted to see what Rhode Island was like as we were starting to open up. So we had reporters from Travel and Leisure, BuzzFeed, Time Out New York, all came to visit. Next slide. We also did earned media pitching around specific events. I pulled this Jack-o'-lantern spectacular out to highlight for you. Time Out New York came to visit, Boston Herald, Boston Globe all came down for it. Next slide. Social media was big for us during the pandemic, and by all of our accounts, the data, we are increased from the previous year. We are out there meeting people where they are, Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok, which has taken off more than I thought it would. Next slide. Some of our specific social media efforts, we partnered with Dell's Lemonade to do this make lemonade out of lemons at the start of the pandemic. We did giveaways of Dell's Lemonade boxes for our social media viewers. Next slide. We did a Rhode Resilient effort, showcasing that even in the toughest of conditions, we as Rhode Islanders are resilient, and we're going to get through this together. We distributed face masks that were branded Rhode Island, T-shirts. We did a social distancing bingo. Next slide. And we were able to use content creators from local Rhode Islanders who were taking social media content, wearing the face masks or the T-shirts, and we were able to get new digital assets from our local Rhode Islanders to highlight in our campaign efforts. Next slide. As Rhode Island was one of the first states in the region to open up, we used the theme of Hit the Open Road, showing that we were opening incrementally. It also fit with our drive time narrative, knowing that people were taking drive getaways. Here's some of our paid social performance metrics based on hitting the open road. This was a social media campaign effort. And like I said, I'll make all these slides available. Next slide. And then I want to wrap up by pointing to a couple things we are doing. Last year, right before the pandemic hit, we had the state's first ever hotel week. The premise is we know we have great summers and occupancy during the summer season. So how do we increase hotel bookings in our shoulder season. So last year we did Hotel Week, literally right before the pandemic came down in February. I can get you the statistics, but we had, I think it was something, I don't want to guess off the top of my head, but over, I think, 10,000 direct hotel bookings made as a result of the Hotel Week. Basically, we have a tiered pricing structure, so someone could stay at the Ocean House, where it's usually quite expensive, but for Hotel Week, they were offering deals at like $400 for a night, and so we did different ranges. There was hotels at $100 a night, $200 a night, $300 a night, $400 a night. We're doing the same thing this year, April 17th through 30th. We're doing it for 2 weeks instead of 1 week this time. The first week is targeted specifically to Rhode Islanders. Everyone is itching to get out of their house and treat themselves a little bit. So we want to encourage Rhode Islanders to treat themselves with a little staycation and spend their money and enjoy what Rhode Island has to offer. So we're really looking forward to that. And do I have one more slide, Sarah? And then I'll just finish by talking about some COVID. I know one of the questions from the representatives is you give out any grants. During the first CARES Act funding that the state received, we did a $20 million specific grant program called the HEART program, specifically for the tourism and hospitality industry. I know my colleagues in the regions were not able to get PPP funding, for example, so it was important to us to open up this program. They could apply for it. So, for example, we gave $114,000 to the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council so that they could do their outdoor Christmas village. So we did a mixture of promoting COVID-safe activities and helping fund those, and also direct support to grants to hotels and hospitality venues. We worked, our staff worked on the PPP, and now with the American Rescue Act, we are out hitting the ground to make sure that all of our tourism and hospitality businesses are taking advantage of the second round of PPP, the shuttered venues grants. There's specific new grants for restaurants. And then the governor is going to be announcing a new small business grant program in the coming weeks. And I know I won't take Kristen's thunder, but Commerce is working on a pilot program with Providence, since they have been hit the hardest out of all of our regions during this CARES Act. So we're working on an exciting pilot with Providence I'll let Kristen talk about. But with that, Rep, I know I went really fast, but I wanted to make sure I had time for questions and
Sure.
answer.
Are there any questions from any member of the subcommittee? I don't think so. I had a question. There was that one slide where you talked about how many rooms were rented in the past year. And I think it said, how many rooms was that? I didn't, it's the one that had the graph on the bottom where you said that there was it didn't show anything during January.
So for our paid advertising, which was our paid spend, which we put the Adara tracking. So for our $568,000 we spent on paid ads,
Right.
we were able to track 148,393 hotel bookings as a direct result of those paid ads that
That was in what time period?
That's from July 2020 to February 2021.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty significant number under the circumstances. That's what I wanted to comment on. I mean, many people were not going anywhere. And to have all those people, do we know if they were business or leisure? Do we have any sense of who those people were? Because under the COVID thing, that was a lot of rooms to rent. It
was a smart strategy that we came up with working with the tourism regions, looking at the national data and trends on people were anxious to get out of their house, but they didn't want to go far. And, we did open up kind of first among our region states. So we all decided that the drive market was the play to go, and it seemed to have worked. To blunt a little, we all had tremendous damage to this industry, but to blunt it a little bit.
Yeah, without a doubt. Okay, super. Kristen, you're up.
Sure. Hopefully I can share. CJ and I tried to work on it earlier, so fingers crossed. It looks like I can. So I will share my screen with you. Okay, let me start from the beginning here. Slide should be helpful. So this is just answering the questions that Representative Carson provided. A little bit about the Providence Warwick Convention and Visitors Bureau, because we're slightly different. We're a 501c6, and I like to start big and go small. So we run the Rhode Island Sports Commission. Ooh, wait. Hold on. I overhit. Previous. Ugh, I'm going to start again. If I can. There we go. All right. So, there we go. So I start big. We run this Rhode Island Sports Commission, which we sell the entire state and book sporting events throughout Rhode Island. We are also a meeting and convention destination, and we book and service meetings and conventions primarily in the Providence, Warwick area. And then we also market the city of Providence as a leisure destination. And just to give you a framework, our destination tends to be more meetings and conventions and sports focused. So in our what we call our last good year, we booked 242 meetings that will result in 74, or pre-pandemic would have resulted in $74.3 million in direct spending, about 112,000 hotel rooms booked just with those events, and about 200,000 people attending. This is our organizational chart. We're overseen by a board of directors. That board is appointed by the mayors of both Providence and Warwick, as well as the governor, the Rhode Island Convention Center Authority, and then we have two board members that are elected by our membership. You can see we run the sports commission as well as a sales division, a marketing division, and an administrative division. This is our pre-COVID chart. You'll see the pink boxes are unfortunately positions we have had to eliminate because of the COVID pandemic. At one point, we were down to about 7 staff members. We are currently at 17. Our mission is to grow the convention and visitor industry to improve Rhode Island's economy and quality of life. So this is our budget. We were founded in 1995, and I gave the budget over the past 3 years because the last 2 years, like everything else in our world, have been impacted by COVID. So pre-COVID, which is FY19, we were at $4.14 million. COVID hit at the end of our fiscal year. Our fiscal year ends in June. COVID hit in March of fiscal year 20, so we were at $3.7 million. We are projecting to be somewhere around $2.6 million for this fiscal year. So you can see we've suffered a significant loss, and that's mostly due to not only hotel tax income decrease, but some other things you'll see in a minute. The law governing our work, you can see here, is Chapter 42, Section 42-63.1-11. Current fiscal year. This is how we are funded, and this is our estimated totals for this year. I didn't go back to other years. Room tax. We also received grants. The Rhode Island Convention Center Authority is the only funding source of ours that has not been impacted by COVID. That is our agreement with them, and they have held to that. We have taken cuts also with the Providence Tourism Council, and we are a member-based organization, so we have membership outside of the Providence Warwick area that pay dues, and we felt very strongly that we could not ask at times like this for people to pay the dues that they normally would. So we gave our entire membership 9 months free, and we also opened up memberships to businesses in Providence and Warwick as just a thing to do. Grant awarding. We don't do a lot of it. We have one $2,500 grant each in Providence and Warwick to a project designated by that city that promotes tourism. We do that annually. The Ryland Sports Commission awards small grants, typically $10,000 or less. And what those do is they seed up and coming sporting events, or they help planners start new ones. A great example is we work with a local guy who does a firecracker baseball tournament, and he's been able to grow that exponentially over the years. We also have on occasion a small opportunities fund, and that's to help really incentivize business to come to the destination. Our annual budget for that is between 40 and 50,000, depending on what's coming in. And it does prove a challenge to us because we compete against cities like Boston or Pittsburgh and places like that. And typically those incentive funds are a lot higher, but we do the best we can with what we have. So improvements. We have seen a catastrophic year, but we like to look at the silver lining in things. So what we're looking at is what are the things that we can take from this time and change to make them better. So one of the things we've been doing is reimagining our meeting and convention program. We've redeployed our sales team because we've lost a few people and done it in a more strategic way. The convention center has also lost staff. So it's been an opportunity for us to integrate and streamline the process of booking in Providence and Warwick for the end user. And we're doing a lot with virtual technology, and I will talk a little bit about that later on. The other thing we're doing is I think it's important to, and I know actually some of my colleagues are doing this as well, is reimagine the visitor services program. So for us, we're looking at making it more mobile. We're trying to integrate it into all parts of the community. I think people tend to focus on downtown and Federal Hill, and that's great. But we have a big city and a big state, and so we're trying to push out more. And I think we want to be more reflective of the people that are coming in and the people that we serve. So we've begun translating material into Spanish, and we're very much, when we rehire for that position, we're very intent on having someone bilingual. This has also been a great opportunity for us to reinvent our role in the destination. I like to say to people that the one silver lining has been how important people are now realizing something that you all have known for a long time, which is that tourism is an important revenue generator, and particularly here in Providence and in Warwick, where the convention center has been shuttered for so long. So we've really been taking this opportunity to work with like-minded organizations and elected officials, and we're working on short-term sustainability plans, but we're also taking the opportunity to all talk and start thinking about how are we going to go forward and how can we make things better. So our losses, unfortunately, this is the grim part of the presentation. Business booked by my team that has been lost or postponed accounts for an estimated $3 million loss in direct spending pre-COVID. So that's everything from restaurants, special events, hotels, food and beverage fees, transportation. So it has been a sustained loss. And one of the things people say to me is, well, postponed business is great because you're still getting it. And that's true. But the issue really is, though, they're now taking spaces we may have sold to someone else. So it really still is a massive hit. Hotels in Providence, and this is staggering to me, saw a 70.3 million % year-over-year decrease in revenue, and you can see those totals. The Graduate and the Omni are currently closed to the public. The Graduate will be opening in April, and it looks like the Omni will also be opening to the public in late spring. And then for Warwick, what I tell people is we have a problem in Warwick. We have a full-on hotel crisis in Providence. So you can see they had a 46.2% decline. This is the hotel occupancy, the real hotel occupancy year over year for 2019 and 2020. We get the STAR report, which gives you occupancy, but unfortunately, once the Graduate and the Omni closed, they were not factored into that total. So we actually took that data, included those rooms, and got a real number here. So you can see, I mean, it's incredibly obvious where the pandemic occurred right here. Same thing in Warwick. You can see the steep decline. Warwick has been able to hold its own a little bit more. They do get some flight crews and things like that. So they've done a little bit better. This is meetings demand. This is a little wonky, but it shows you events that are currently on the books, the number of events we had on the books at the same time last year, and the variance. And so the point I'm trying to get at here is because when the pandemic hit, many of the hotel sales teams were let go and a lot of meeting planners were furloughed. There wasn't a tremendous amount of activity in terms of booking. My team spent a great deal of time moving business or canceling business, but we're not as strong as we normally would be, in booking events going forward. So our biggest concerns, I pulled some data from U.S. travel, and it really goes to the meetings business. Close to 6 in 10 people do not anticipate resuming face-to-face events until the second half of 21. And more than 8 in 10 say it's going to take until 23 to return to 80% of pre-COVID business. Tourism Economics, which is a powerhouse in our industry, estimates that meeting business won't return to pre-COVID 2019 levels until about 2025. So these are big concerns, obviously, for us. So our responses have been this. We have really tried to be innovative. Thanks to the HEART grants that Matt referenced, we are doing some virtual things. We developed a virtual site visit for people who can't come here but are interested in booking. My team has 360-degree tours of most facilities and hotels. The future of meetings is going to be hybrid meetings, so it might be you might have 500 people at the convention center, but you might have 30,000 somewhere else. And so we are developing a hybrid studio almost as a Band-Aid to get us through the next couple years. And then we're doing some marketing things and, of course, working with the Department of Health as we go forward. This is a program I'm extremely excited about that we will be launching in April. We need the support of our local communities. So we are currently working, and you're the first people to hear about this. We're currently working with the Partnership for Rhode Island, Providence Business News, and local colleges and universities. We'll be launching a program called Meet in Rhode Island, and we want local people to commit to hosting at least one meeting in Rhode Island in 21 to 23. And these are some of the examples of the types of things we're asking them to do. So far, just in the initial setup of this, the response has been overwhelming. The partnership has been incredible. Johnson & Wales has been incredible. I think I went a little too far here. On the leisure side, some things that we're doing. We led the team of regions on Buy Local Rhode Island, and we continue to do that. And it's a statewide effort to support local business. We partnered with Blackstone Valley and Warwick on joyrides.com, which is a virtual road trip. And going forward, we'll be freshening those up a little bit, and we will be doing Providence Restaurant Weeks again. Just a little note on Buy Local. We launched today a great little program with Rhode Island Hospitality and the Rhode Island Foundation and Go Providence and Frog and Toad. We're going to be selling Buy Local RI t-shirts, and the proceeds will benefit the Rhode Island Hospitality's Employee Relief Fund. So we're trying to give back to our people who've been so badly impacted by what's going on. This is what Matt alluded to, which we're very excited about. We're partnering with Commerce on a visa incentive program for the summer. It'll launch in mid-June, and basically we're still working out the logistics, but you would book 2 nights at a Providence hotel and receive a $100 Visa card for use during your stay. They're branded for Providence. They come with collateral that outlines a list of participating merchants, and we can set an expiration date. The Visa cards will be able to be digitally fenced for use in Providence, and we will restrict them by industry and merchant number because we don't want, for example, people going to McDonald's. We want them going to Ocean State Sandwich down the street here in Providence. And I'm working with Mayor Lorza's team on that outreach so we can get all of the neighborhoods involved. The hotels will be working with us, and we'll cover a portion of that Visa card. And the cards will be distributed at the front desk to guests upon check-in. Biggest risks. So for us right now, we've lost a lot, and so a lack of funding and staffing, I fear, may hamper us, particularly in the short term, from fully executing our sales and marketing efforts. The other risk we've outlined already, which is that slow return to the bulk of our business, which is meetings and conventions. Another one is the return of airlift. Airlift is so important to the meeting convention work that we do. The one-time 120 departures per day have been reduced. And we have been working with Iftikhar and the airport, and we are in constant contact about this issue. Regulatory, we have an annual audit, and we report to a lot of different agencies because of our funding mechanism, including the Rhode Island Convention Center Authority and the Providence Tourism Council. We certainly also report twice a year to the State Budget Office, the fiscal advisors, and the legislative fiscal analyst. A little about our planning process. So we're really in the throes of a crisis right now. So the way that we're looking at planning is in 3 different stages. So right now is we're still in that crisis. For example, it was very difficult to do a budget this year, and I and my board felt it was important to work mostly from a cash flow. So what we're doing right now is looking at that cash flow and allocating what we can spend on advertising and programming as the fiscal year winds down and people are starting to come back. Right now, we're working on our annual business plan and our budget for FY22. Since that begins in July, we are just in the very beginning of it. And something I really did want to highlight is we're also thinking about the future and looking at the ways that we are funded and the ways that we could possibly grow. So it is the intent of the CVB to look at a tourism master plan for the destination and to look at alternative funding sources such as a tourism improvement district that would offset any plans that we may have for growth. And that is very much in the initial stages right now. And that is it. So does anyone have any questions?
Just want to make a comment. Thank you very much, Kristen. As I said in the beginning of this meeting, there are the 7 regions around the state, and we're only hearing from 2 of them today. And they each run their own programs, and they coordinate with each other, and they coordinate with Commerce, just to give you sort of a structural sense. But I started with the 2 largest ones because I thought that made the most sense. And as time goes by, we'll hear from the other regions as well, because they're busy doing other things. Representative Corcoran?
Yeah, maybe Matt said this. I think it's a question for Matt, but does all the efforts that he shared with us through Rhode Island Commerce, does all that come through the hotel tax or other streams of income that support your work?
Our team and our efforts are funded through the hotel tax.
Okay. I was going to ask you why you didn't have more on on your website about attracting the yachting community, but that explains it. Thank you.
We also, part of my team at Commerce also focus on business attraction marketing. We have a marketer that works on that with the team. But we do a breakdown of 80% of the funding that we receive is spent on tourism related activities and 20% on business attractions, roughly.
Thanks.
Okay, Evan, I think you're up.
Thank you, Rep. Carson. Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody see my shared screen?
Yep.
Great, because just when I mastered Zoom, along comes WebEx, and this is my rookie version of WebEx. So I feel like I just passed a test in high school or something. But anyway, good afternoon, everybody. Bright sunny day here in Rhode Island. I'm going to start with Discover Newport, a little history. Going back into the 70s and 80s, Newport's tourism program was called the Newport Tourism Authority. It took a quantum step forward in 1988 when it became repositioned as the Newport County Convention and Visitors Bureau. So it changed from authority to Convention and Visitors Bureau in 1988. And then in 2005, we were approached by the 3 towns in Bristol County who wanted to join our program. And after an exploratory period of mutual assessment, we decided to merge the 2 programs. And in 2005, we became the Newport and Bristol County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And because we could never say that word, or a client could never say it, we changed our DBA to Discover Newport, 9 coastal towns, 1 big experience. So we've morphed over the years. We are governed, well, let me stop for a minute. Like Kristen, we are a 501c6 organization. We are also a not-for-profit organization. Our governance, we're made up of 18 board members, which I'll show you in a moment. Our staff outline you can see there. We currently have 4 people in marketing, 3 people in group sales, and 1 person in finance. This picture before COVID had 4 more people in it. Sadly, there's 4 people, actually 5 people who we were not able to carry financially. So this is what we, at one point, just after COVID, we dropped down to 4 people, but we are slowly recovering. So, having said that, we'll slide this down a little bit. Our board of directors, these things are very finicky, Kristen. Okay, our 18 board directors, 13 of the 18 seats are municipally appointed. So we promote 9 towns. The city of Newport has 3 seats on our board. The town of Middletown has 3 seats on our board. The other 7 townships we promote all have 1 seat on our board. You might ask why that is, and I'll tell you that in a moment. But then we have what's called 5 industry seats. We have lodging over 100 rooms, lodging under 100 rooms, 1 restaurant, 1 attraction, and 1 member of the public. So, going down one more slide. So I told you that Newport has 3 seats and Middletown has 3 seats. So the answer to why do they have more representation? Well, 74% of our budget is directed from hotels in the city of Newport. 24% of our funding comes from hotels in Middletown, and only 2% comes from the other 7 towns that we represent. When you stay in a lodging establishment in the state of Rhode Island, or at least certainly here in Newport and Bristol County, you're paying a 7% sales tax, a 5% state lodging tax, and a 1% local lodging tax. The 5% lodging tax, when you're looking to your lower right, you'll see the distribution of that. Our organization receives 42% of the 5% lodging tax. 25% goes to the town in which it's collected, and 28% goes to Commerce, and 5% goes to the Providence Warwick Convention and Visitors Bureau. One note here that I want to make is we only make the 42% on the rooms that are in our district. And the township only makes its 25% on the rooms that are in its district. Commerce makes its 28% on every room in the state of Rhode Island. So a little bit of breakdown on the funding. We are governed by state legislative bylaws. Rep Carson, Rep Cordovan, I sent it to you. I'm glad to send it to anybody else. I didn't really actually know the other members of the commission until today, but we're under state laws 42-105-1. So when you look at your email, you'll see all that kind of good stuff. Before COVID hit, we were at about $3.5 million a year. We were just coming up on $3.6 million a year. After COVID, we dropped down to $2 million, so we lost about $1.6 million through COVID. For next year, we're working on our budget now for the new year that starts July 1, 2021, and based on the best research we have at hand, as our partners are doing, we think we're going to be about $2.4 million for fiscal year 21-22. Of our funding, 90% of it comes from the state lodging tax. We raise 10% of our own funds by selling ads on our website largely, some other minor sources, but that's the primary other source of our funding is the marketing of our website. Do we award any grant money? No, we don't have a grant program. We work collaboratively with industry partners for co-op advertising. We work very closely with our alliance partners to see how we can stretch our dollars. And so Catherine Farrington and our marketing team do a great job, as does Tim Walsh, our VP of Sales, in trying to leverage our funds with our partners so we can all take it a little bit further. So One of the things that I'm going to inject here, and I apologize, don't have a slide, but we also did form a tourism improvement district in Newport. An additional $1 assessment, not a tax, but $1 per room sold only in the city of Newport creates an additional fund for our marketing purposes that raises about $375,000 a year. The tourism improvement district is a long story. Rep Carson, it would take me more than our time allotted here today to explain it to the commission, but I'd be glad to do so at a dedicated time. But it is an unusual new technique that destinations are using to expand their budgets, to grow their budgets. And here in Newport, we were the first CVB in New England to adopt such a program, and we hope to be able to grow that program moving forward. Let's see. Improvement. Certainly things that we would like to improve on is we would like to build our budget back. We'd like to build our staff back. And we'd like to build the number of experiences that people can experience in our destination. Those are three areas that we think are fundamentally key to growing our organization and the impact our organization has. When I'm saying experiences is destinations constantly have to change. They constantly have to evolve. They have to come up with new reasons to get people to visit their destination. And so we're working very closely with our industry partners to not only monitor what other people are doing around the United States and around the world, but we have to keep our visitor experience fresh, interesting, and I'm going to say timely, because the travel industry, like our society, is constantly changing, and we need to change with it. So that's something that we work on a regular basis. The impact of COVID, I think that Matt and Kristen did a great job covering it. I'm going to add to their words that as I look at the national and international landscape, I would break down the impact of COVID three ways on businesses. Some businesses did better during COVID. A lot of people, made a lot more money in COVID. Clearly, people who make masks, people who delivered things. There were a lot of winners actually in COVID. And so there's this misconception that COVID was negative for everybody. And that's simply not true. There were a lot of businesses that actually grew during COVID. The second category I'm going to say is that there were a number of businesses that just stayed the same. They hibernated. They basically went into suspended animation, and they didn't drop or they didn't gain. They just held their ground. Unfortunately, sadly, I would argue strongly that no industry in America, no industry globally, was harder impacted than the travel industry. Because mobility was restricted, because of the concern and fear of a national and international pandemic, the traveling public basically stopped. And so as you look at the numbers throughout all the sectors of the travel industry, they're absolutely staggering. And it is going to, as Kristen pointed out, it's going to take years for us to rebound from a lot of those things. For our company, clearly I've already pointed out, we have to downsize staff. We moved out of the Gateway Visitor Center, and we had to reduce our budget by $1.6 million. Just a word about the Gateway Visitor Center. The Gateway Visitor Center was in the late 1980s the next step of what I consider to be a 100-year evolution of travel and tourism on Aquidneck Island. It was heralded as the new and best, brightest technology when it opened in 1988. I was standing right next to Governor DePrete when he cut the ribbon. But one of the things I want to tell you is that the visitor center was developed before cell phones and before computers. And unfortunately, time and technology has changed how the travel industry, I say unfortunately for the Gateway Center, because as an organization, it was chewing up a disproportional amount of our budget. And we were using over 30% of our annual operating budget to operate that 7,000 square foot center. That was something I had to change when faced with the grim reality of what our budget reductions were going to be for COVID. And so needed to take a bold new step in a direction of changing. So we have left. We now reside across the street in Long Wharf Mall. Right now, the city of Newport is having negotiations with Save the Bay to see if they want to move into the visitor center and move their aquarium from Easton's Beach to the center. That's a negotiation. I hope it comes to fruition. But right now, that building is an opportunity waiting to happen. The repurposing of it is exciting opportunity for the city of Newport. And I think that we hope that the city takes great care in finding the next chapter of that. So that's just an update on the visitor center. The biggest risks over the next 12 months, certainly a fourth wave of COVID that's happening in Italy or France or other places. I feel, and I don't mean to be disrespectful here, I'm just trying to be as graphically blunt as I possibly can. I feel like the last year has been somewhat of a tug of war between our needs of health for our country and our industry needs. And we go back and forth about, is it safe to travel? Isn't it safe to travel? Isn't it? And so we are still stuck in that great debate nationally and internationally, but certainly a fourth wave of the pandemic would be extremely detrimental to any recovery efforts by the travel industry. So that would be my single biggest concern. Our point of optimism is that we're opening up a new, what we call a pop-up visitor center. It's going to be a smaller, more sustainable product. We're moving from 7,000 square feet down to 700 square feet. It's in a former retail store. We are going to, you might say, well, what's a pop-up visitor center? It's a pop-up because we don't know if we'll be here next year. This is an experiment for us. We're going to try it in an empty retail store and see how it works this year. If the results are good, we'll keep it. If not, it will disappear. So our new pop-up visitor center is going to open in May, and our staff is working very hard to launch that now. Let's see. Regulatory environment. I kind of interpreted the word regulatory in a different way than Kristen did, and I'm not sure how you all meant that, but I'm sorry if I missed the mark here. But my interpretation of that word, I think one of the biggest in-market challenges from a regulatory capacity is short-term rentals. Short-term rentals, I'm talking about VRBO, Airbnb, and other things, is a major challenge for, I think, all the municipalities in the state and in the country, and how towns and how states are dealing with short-term rentals. It continues to be one of the key topics that we're struggling with and wrestling with, because there are certainly many, many advantages of short-term rentals, but there's also a great need to create a level playing field. And so there's a large yin and there's a large yang, and trying to solve that is not easy. Planning process for us, like Kristen, like our other partners, we are on a July 1 start date. We're in the process right now of building our new budget, and our staff is working basically on a forecast that we think is reasonably solid now for revenue. And so we will start to back into how we allocate those funds for our sales efforts, for our marketing and promotions efforts, and our special projects. It is certainly refreshing and a sense of renewal that we can actually think about marketing again, because there was many, many months, almost the majority of the year, where it didn't make any sense to market at all because people weren't traveling. But rebuilding consumer confidence at every level, getting travelers back to traveling again, I think is job number one for all of us. People have different thermostats about travel. Some people are ready to travel now. Some people say they'll be ready to travel when they're vaccinated. Others may not travel for a couple of years, and there will be setbacks. But we need to restore consumer confidence in travel. And a big part of that will be how all of us express how we travel safely in our outreach and our promotions. And the team that you're going to hear today and the team members that you're going to hear at future commission meetings all are fully committed to the principles of safe travel. And so as we start to get the American and international public traveling again, that's going to be a big part of it. The other part of regulatory that I may or may not have misjudged the definition, but for us, the big three in this past year, the big three sectors that we lost most of, the three areas that we make the most revenue in are special events, weddings, and conferences. And because of governmental limitations on assembly, all three categories were either fundamentally leveled or operating at a very, very low level. So working with government officials at every level, reestablishing safe, balanced, logical governance for events, for meetings, for weddings is going to be key to bringing back the three drivers of the Newport and Bristol County economy. And finally, I'm going to close with the fact that here in Newport and Bristol County, our organization, Discover Newport, has joined with our chamber, with Rhode Island Land Trades Association, with the State Hospitality Association, with the State Manufacturing Association, because we all wanted to work together collaboratively to share our best ideas and share resources as we all work to survive the pandemic. And it's been really a very rewarding year working collaboratively with these other organizations to try to figure out ways to not only survive, but to navigate through the troubles of the pandemic. So I'm giving a shout out to Aaron Donovan at our chamber and all the members of Restore Greater Newport as we've worked to collaborate together towards a brighter future. So having said that, I think I'm going to stop there. I've talked long enough. My staff tells me I talk too much, and I'll answer any questions that our commission members might have of me.
That's great, Evan. Thank you so much for all that background. I'm sure that, for myself, I've been involved in this work for a while, but I think it's useful for the other members to hear how this all fits together. It's really a combination of things that make the tourism industry go in the state of Rhode Island. The funding is a curious formula. People are doing different things locally and doing things statewide. And I think it's, as we dig in a little further, this backdrop, I'm pretty sure will be very useful for us. Does anyone have any questions of our last speaker, Terry?
Oh,
Are you muted?
yeah, I had to mute. Sorry, I had to find my mouse. Evan, are you ready to tell us where the pop-up is going to be?
Yes, it was in the newspaper today, actually, but it's right below us in where the retail, where Panera Bread is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's right next to Panera Bread in a little retail store it used to be called La Acetane. La Acetane.
Oh.
And so it's going to be actually right under our new sales and marketing offices in the Long Wharf Mall.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We're excited, and we'll have you come down for the ribbon cutting.
Okay.
Yes, let us know. We'll be there.
Yeah.
Okay, I think last but certainly not least is Sarah. Sarah Bratko from the Hospitality Association is going to give us a broader presentation for the entire industry. And Sarah was a member of my House Study Commission. So good to see her again and welcome her back to this legislative conversation on tourism.
Thank you very much for having me. For those who may not necessarily be familiar with who the Rhode Island Hospitality Association is, we are actually two companies under one joint enterprise. Our 501c6 is the association, which you are probably the most familiar with, but we also have a separate 501c3, which is our education foundation. We operate under what we call our culture of community, which is how we define everything that we do. Our main job is to build up the hospitality community in Rhode Island and give them the best voice possible in order to move their businesses forward. Our mission and our visions are very similar to that. The association's main job is to advocate for the industry, and we do that on both the lobbying side through communications and our education programs. The Education Foundation's job is to grow the future generation of hospitality professionals. Our 501c6 is governed by a board of directors. It is primarily funded through membership dues and program service revenue. We do have several fundraising events throughout the year. Some of our training programs provide revenue, but we also are a recipient of the Real Jobs RI grant, which is an absolutely wonderful program that enables us to train hundreds and hundreds of people every year in order to get them jobs in the industry. Our 501c3 EF is also governed by a separate board of directors, and it is primarily funded through grants and donations. I would be remiss if I didn't just touch on the team at REHA very quickly. We are a small staff. We are 5.5 people, and we are all female and an all-female organization, and one of the most dynamic, hardworking groups of people I have ever worked with. When we look back over the last year and think about what made us successful, a primary part of that was the amazing team that we have at our office. So just a little shout out to the women that I work with on a day-to-day basis. COVID, I think everybody understands, and as the previous presenters discussed, has had an absolute impact on our industry. Pre-COVID, we were one of the top 5 industries in the state. In calendar year 2019, our industry collected just under $300 million in sales tax, meals and beverage tax, and hotel tax revenue. Fast forward to 2020, and our December meals and beverage tax was down over 30%. The hotel tax was down 60%. Nationally, the food service industry lost $240 billion in sales, and our recent sales data indicates that our industry has now entered into a double-dip recession. On the workforce side of things, it's even worse. Pre-COVID, we employed over 86,000 people in the state, and according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the hospitality and leisure industry has lost as many jobs as construction, government, manufacturing, retail, education, and health services combined. 96% of local Rhode Island operators have been forced to lay off employees, and over 36,000 people have lost their jobs in Rhode Island in our industry this past year. We're starting to see that uptick a little bit with the warmer weather here, with the loosened up restrictions, and so we're very hopeful that this number in particular will start improving soon. It did improve a little bit over the summer last year, but we saw a second round of layoffs as the weather got colder and we entered into the pause period in November, December, January. As our industry shut down last March, the association faced its own loss. We lost one of our long-term board members, Al Zanella, almost a year ago, actually, to the day. And when he passed away, his family came to us and wanted to do something to memorialize just how wonderful he was. And so we developed the Employee Relief Fund, which was aimed at helping employees that have been laid off and facing some financial hardship specifically due to COVID. In the year since its inception, we've raised enough money to help almost 700 people and are planning on making this a permanent feature of the Education Foundation in honor of Al's memory. We knew as we moved from an in-person model to a very remote-based model, we would have to change our communication strategy. We started what's called our daily brief, which is now a 5 times a week newsletter that's sent out. We do a weekly industry call with our members every Thursday at 2:30. We have opened up our membership to all members of the industry, regardless of whether or not they are paying membership dues. And we developed a specific area on our website to handle any COVID-specific issues. When we started looking at how our industry would reopen, we approached it balancing 3 different factors. The first was the economic need. Obviously, that exists. It is the very real reality of the loss that people have faced, but we also very firmly believe that we have an obligation to the people that work in our industry to keep them healthy and to keep them safe. And so every conversation we had about reopening was about balancing the economic costs to the very real health and safety realities of the COVID virus. We worked on a daily basis with the governor's office and Commerce RI, the Department of Health, DVR, pretty much anybody that would work with us, we worked with them to figure out the best approach forward to reopening. We were one of the first states in the region to reopen. And as we have gone through this, there has been an emphasis on how to make sure that our industry survives this and comes out the other side. We have always had a technical assistance program, but we launched a much more COVID focused system on this. The reopening rules were tricky. They weren't necessarily intuitive, and it required a lot of education and a lot of retraining, not just for operators, but for their employees. We spent a lot of time making sure that our industry handled COVID cases in the workplace properly. Employee testing and paid sick leave became very important. We also, unfortunately, faced and continue to face a growing mental health crisis in our industry, and had to implement a suicide awareness training and mental health training, not just for our members, but also for our staff that was working on a day-to-day basis with our members and hearing some troubling information from people. From the very beginning, we knew that our ticket out of COVID was getting people tested. And when we talked to our counterparts around the country about what we have done, by far, testing for all Rhode Islanders, but particularly employees, is a shining example of what Rhode Island did correctly during this pandemic. We pushed incredibly hard to get hospitality employees access to asymptomatic testing. And once the summer season started in South County and Newport, we pushed to get a testing location open in Newport. We had to explain that just even though it was only a half an hour away, employees were not going to cross the bridge in order to get tested in Warwick. Just this past fall, we launched the Buy Next Now on-demand testing program, and now we have almost 80 employers that are doing this testing in hospitality businesses at their workplace. Knowing that we faced a consumer confidence issue, we developed our reopening pledges, one for hotels, one for restaurants. And what this really did was focused on highlighting everything that these businesses were doing to keep people safe. The good part of COVID was that our industry is already highly regulated. So we're used to having to clean frequently and wash our hands and all of that. That's always been a part of what we've done. Now it's about highlighting that so that people are aware of it on a day-to-day basis. We worked very closely to get economic relief for our industry, Restore RI, the HART grants, the curfew grants, and the pause grants. These were all incredibly helpful. One of the most innovative programs that we did, though, was the Take It Outside initiative. Commerce came up with this idea about how do we extend our outdoor dining season in Rhode Island. Pre-COVID, people in Rhode Island dine out from Memorial Day to Columbus Day. And it was there wasn't much maneuverability on this. We started thinking about what is it going to take to keep people outside an extra week, an extra month, maybe an extra 3 months. And so the Take It Outside initiative turned into one of our largest programs that we did throughout the fall. We received a very generous grant from Commerce. We purchased over 12,000 blankets, almost 400 heaters, hand warmers, jackets for staff, and developed a reimbursement program for businesses that have expanded their outdoor dining programs. We took over the Providence Marriott. We had to make a panicked phone call to the GM saying, we have 125 pallets of blankets coming. Can they go to your place? And we ran a distribution site out of the Providence Marriott for 3 weeks. Our entire staff moved to the Marriott to work remotely from there. And it was one of the most positive programs. It was so well received. It was a ton of fun to go through it, but it also was successful. We saw people dining out well into December, which would have been unheard of last year. And so when we look at how do we take some positives out of COVID and turn these into long-term programs, we're hopeful that maybe we won't always have people dining out in December, but we've kind of started to change the mentality a little bit of when people can dine outside. Here are just some pictures of this with the blankets and the jackets. And it was really focused on having fun, getting outside, and just kind of relearning how we experience dining during COVID. PPE was a huge concern, particularly at the beginning. Masks, hand sanitizer, disinfectant were all in short supply. We have distributed over 100,000 masks to the industry, and just recently the Manufacturers Association donated a second round of masks to us. And so we continue to distribute the masks and other forms of PPP out of our office in Cranston. We have always been a very partnership-driven organization. We work incredibly closely with our national partners, the National Restaurant Association and the American Hotel and Lodging Association. The Small Business Administration has been amazing, and Mark Hayward deserves every prize in the book for the amount of help and resources that he has given our industry in particular in the last year. For the last several years, we have worked with the Rhode Island Business Coalition, which is made up of other 28 chambers of commerce and trade associations. And we always have worked closely with our tourism regions, but I cannot speak highly enough of the amazing people that work there. And Kristen Adamo and Evan Smith are some of the most brilliant minds in Rhode Island, and the creative ideas that they come up with for how to market this state in a pandemic is really just amazing. It really, truly is. So the question we get from people all the time is, what is it going to take? And it's not to help us recover, and it's not going to be one thing. We need help. We need direct aid. People have remortgaged their homes. They've gone through their savings. They've maxed out their credit cards, and there is just no money left. If their HVAC system goes out, which it seems to always do, that's it. They don't have any way of repairing that fix. Consumer confidence is still struggling. We are facing a staffing shortage as people grapple with difficulties finding childcare and transportation. We don't know what the future looks like. We don't know what the rules are going to be next week, next month, in 6 months. What's the summer going to look like? What's the fall going to look like? And we're also struggling with the fact that it is now costing us twice as much to run a business, but you're making half as much money. All of the required reopening guidelines, additional cleaning, more equipment, more staff, costs money. And people are doing it and they believe in doing it correctly, but it definitely comes at a cost. We need a long-term plan with clear metrics. We need a date of when the Rhode Island Convention Center will be decommissioned as a field hospital and when it will be reopened. We need a firm date. When we talk, and I know Kristen mentioned a little bit about the crisis facing Providence, there is a very real crisis, and it does not just impact our hotels. It does not just impact the tourism regions. It impacts every single small business in Providence. The restaurants in downtown Providence are a ghost town. And the only way that we will get that fixed is by reopening the Rhode Island Convention Center as quickly as possible. We need to make sure that there is a steady stream of tourism funding and that it is done with a clear, concise plan. But more importantly, we need to know what the end goal is. What is it going to take? What is the goal that we have to meet for the state to say, we have conquered COVID? Whether it's a certain vaccination rate, whether it is a certain test positive rate or hospitalization rate, whatever it is, we need to know what that goal is so that we can start moving forward and developing plans. One of the hardest things for small business to do is to operate with uncertainty and unpredictability. And that is all we have done for the last year. We have been able to kind of patch together a survival process, but unless we start having better long-term plans with clear metrics for how to move forward, we won't be able to continue on. We also need to look at how do we build policies in a way that makes sense for the post-COVID future. PPP was a lifeline to our industry. Taxing it would be an absolute crisis, particularly retroactively taxing it. People don't have any money to pay a surprise tax bill at the end of the year. We just don't. Alcohol to go and third-party delivery are increasingly important as we continue to be reliant on takeout and delivery. We need to look at how do we make the municipal zoning process make more sense. When we first launched the Take It Outside program, I will admit that I was skeptical that the municipalities would make this easy, and they did. Providence and Newport and Warwick stepped up and said, you want to do outdoor dining? Just do it. This is how you do it. It's easy. Why didn't we always do that? Why did it take a pandemic to make the municipalities just let us do things? And so we have to start looking at what worked during COVID and how can we can take these and make these experiences that we can build on in the future. Looking at our liquor laws, what needs to be updated? Our liquor laws were written in the 1930s and they are old and they are confusing and they do not make sense. How do we look at that in a robust way that allows us not just to build back our industry, but to expand it in the future? And looking at things, I know I've talked about this with several members of the committee about looking at the tax penalty on tax interest. It's 18%. It's the highest in the country. Why? Why does Rhode Island have to have the highest tax penalty rate in the country? So we are looking at that as well. But most importantly, we just need a little bit of a break. We are asking more than anything for a pause on new mandates, a pause on new operational costs, a pause on new taxes, because we need at least a year to get our feet back from underneath us. So as always, we are here to be a resource for all of you. Certainly, if you have any questions, let us know. But we are really excited that we are able to work with all of you to start figuring out how we can build a better Rhode Island after the COVID pandemic ends. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very thorough, Sarah. Are there any questions for Sarah at this time? Okay, any questions for anyone? Did someone have a question? Okay, so this was laying our baseline for tourism. And as I said to the members, we will meet in about at least 3 weeks on recreation and really flush out and lay a groundwork so that we can have an understanding about the way recreation works. And I expect we will be coming back to tourism. There are some issues there. Sarah, I'd like it if you sent either CJ Donovan your slideshow or me, because I was collecting sort of a list of issues that came up. And they may be ones that we want to go back to and dig in a little bit more seriously. So that last slide you had that had all the policy recommendations on it, the liquor licenses, the zoning laws, the tax penalty. I'm just sort of collecting a list of things, and the committee will decide later on what it is we want to focus on and really dig our heels into as we get moving. So if there are no questions, I want to thank our speakers for everything. It was great to see you all again, and I'll probably be in touch sometime later this spring. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.